Good afternoon. My name is Peter Mason, and I'm a policy manager for the Europe region at Universities UK International. And I'd like to welcome you all today to our webinar on the UK and Horizon Europe, which has been jointly organised between us here at Universities UK International and the UK Science and Innovation Network. The aim of today's event is to give you the facts about the new relationship between the UK and EU as regards participation in the EU's flagship research and innovation funding programme, Horizon Europe. To do this, I'm delighted to welcome two expert speakers representing different parts of the UK government who will talk us through the details of the relevant parts of the EU-UK Trade and Cooperation Agreement. Frances?
Thank you, Peter. I'm Frances Wood. I'm the Regional Director for the UK Government Science and Innovation Network for Europe, and I'm coming to you today from sunny Berlin.
And Hayley.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Hayley Gowan. I'm head of the Horizon Europe Association team in the Department for Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy, coming from a slightly less sunny United Kingdom.
And in the question and answer session that will follow the presentation, we're also going to be joined by Małgorzata.
Yes, hello everyone. Thank you for having me as well. So my name is Małgorzata and I work at the UK Research Office. We are a UK Research and Innovation Office in Brussels.
Thank you to all our speakers for finding time to participate in the webinar today. So before we kick off, I'm just going to make a few opening remarks. Firstly, I'd like to extend a special welcome to the large number of academics, researchers and research administrators from institutions and organisations in the EU and across the continent who've tuned in to learn more about how the UK will participate in the Horizon Europe programme. We're really delighted that you found time to join us today, and we hope that what you'll hear will give you the reassurance you need to go ahead and continue to work with UK researchers and academics on collaborative Horizon Europe funding bids, or even maybe to consider applying for ERC and Marie Skłodowska-Curie Action grants and fellowships at UK institutions. Secondly, a few words on the work we've been doing here at UUKi International to promote news about the UK associating to Horizon Europe. Having spent the last few years calling for continued UK participation in the framework programmes, we're really committed now to playing an active role in boosting UK participation levels in the coming years. And I'll say a few more words about that in the presentation. But one thing to look out for in the next few weeks is a new Horizon Europe information pack that we're working on here at UKI. And as well as that, we're planning to organise further webinars in the next few weeks and months to go into more detail and to answer any particular questions in specific areas that you have questions as regards UK participation in Horizon Europe. So following on from this webinar, if you have any ideas for areas that you think we could cover in those webinars, then please do let us know, and there'll be contact details that we'll share after that. And then finally, in terms of how we're going to run the webinar today, if you have questions that you'd like to ask that we can answer during the presentations, then can you please ask them through the Ask a Question tab, which should be at the bottom of your browser window in Crowdcast, rather than posting them in the chat, which we're not going to be monitoring. We hope to have around 40 minutes for questions at the end of the webinar. So if we don't get around to your particular question, we are going to endeavour to answer them after the event, and then we'll send the full set of answers to everyone who's registered, hopefully at some point in the next week or so. You can also write to us here at UK International if you have particular questions that occur to you after the event, and we're going to share contact details as well as the slides, some useful links, and a link to the recording of this webinar with participants after the event. So that's everything that I'm going to say at this point. So with no further ado, I'm going to hand over to Hayley to kick off the presentation.
Thank you, Peter. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to talk you through a bit about the agreement between the UK and the EU, the UK's association to Horizon Europe, and then I'll hand over to my colleague Francis to talk a bit more about that. We could have the next slide, please, Francis. I think we can go straight to the next one, is what does UK association to Horizon Europe mean? So as a summary, and we'll go into this in a bit more detail, on the 24th of December, on Christmas Eve, the EU and the UK agreed a trade and cooperation agreement, and as part of that, it included agreement for the UK to associate to Horizon Europe. The UK can't associate to Horizon Europe yet because the EU regulations are not finalised, but that will, so alongside the trade agreement, has published a protocol which sets out the specific terms around Horizon Europe, and once that is adopted by the EU and the UK, then the UK will be associated to Horizon Europe. We will come back to timings a bit later to give you a broad sense of how it all fits together. What this means, in summary, is that there are equivalent terms for participation for UK and EU entities as part of the UK's association to Horizon Europe. The UK entities shouldn't see any difference. UK organisations can have continued access to collaborative programmes, and they can continue to lead and influence key collaborative projects. UK experts can continue to play their role in evaluating programmes and evaluating projects, and the UK government will also be able to participate in programme committees. Could I have the next slide, please, Francis? Thank you. So in a bit more detail, what does all of this mean? UK entities will have equivalent rights to those from new member states. And what that means is that UK applicants shouldn't see any real difference. For those of you partnering with UK applicants, there shouldn't be any real difference between what happens for the UK and the EU. In terms of access, the agreement means that the UK will participate in the whole of the programme, except for the European Innovation Council Equity Fund. The UK can participate in all other parts of the EIC, but not the equity element. The Commission may also exclude associated countries from certain elements of the programme for exceptional and duly justified cases. And then finally, the UK will be able to attend the programme committees, which look at the overall structure of the programme. Could I have the next slide, please? Thank you. So what this means in terms of participation and access, as I mentioned, the UK will be able to participate in the whole of the programme, including the ERC, the MSCA, and the grant-only aspects of the EIC. And those two exceptions there that I mentioned previously in terms of the European Innovation Council Fund, and where the Commission may exclude for duly justified reasons. And the next slide, please. Thank you. And then just in terms of governance, before I hand over to Francis, that the UK will continue to play a role in the governance of the programme. That means that UK experts can continue to be part of those programmes, to continue to evaluate bids. The UK will remain part of the Joint Research Centre and also remain part of the European Research Area Committee. And then following slide, please. Thank you. And this is where I'm going to hand over to Francis, who will be able to talk to you a bit more about what that means for the UK. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Hayley, and apologies for the sound quality. Hopefully I am coming through a little clearer. So I think just to carry on from where Hayley, I wanted to give a view of what it might feel like as a researcher on the ground. And essentially this is very straightforward. It will feel, if you are a UK participant, or you have a UK partner in your consortia, it will feel very similar to Horizon 2020. And to quote from the Commission FAQ, UK participants have the same rights as EU member states. So here to give you an example, if you are a UK researcher or business and you're part of a successful consortia funding will be distributed in the same way as for member states directly from the Horizon Europe programme. We have had questions before asking if funding for UK participants would come, for example, via UKRI, but that is not the case. Funding will come from the Horizon programme directly as it does for member states. And likewise, if you are a UK researcher and you successfully bid for a mono beneficiary grant, this will be paid directly from Horizon Europe. So I just also wanted to sort of here distinguish between associated countries and third countries. I know for many of you this is a well-known definition, so apologies to those that are very familiar with this, but I think it's just worth reinforcing that the UK will be an associated country, so have the similar rights to member states, whereas third countries will participate on a case-by-case basis and essentially pay to participate in a specific project. So the UK will be an associated country. Then just to cover out the next steps, so we need the EU to ratify the Horizon Europe regulation, and then the UK and the EU can finalise the protocols via the specialised committee. So here again, it's sort of worth re-emphasising that the UK doesn't need to do any further negotiation. That has already been done as part of the UK-EU Trade Cooperation Agreement, and this is just a sort of formal part where we then sign up to the protocol. We can't sign up yet because the regulation for Horizon Europe hasn't been finalised, so it's just a matter of sequencing. And to be clear, we can already, as the UK, participate in calls, so we don't need to be formally associated. It obviously will be a lot more straightforward once we are, but in this interim period until that point, the UK can participate. And I think at the end, we will share the link to the Commission FAQ, which makes this really clear. So essentially, to finish our part before I hand back to Peter, this is a really great outcome for researchers and businesses, both in the UK and EU, and allows for continued cooperation between UK researchers and businesses and those in the EU. So existing partnerships can continue and you can put bids in, but I would also encourage, if you are thinking about new bids and new partnerships, that you consider UK partners. And here on the slides is the link to the Commission Q&A. So thank you very much. I hope the sound is a bit better from Berlin, and I will now hand back to Peter.
Hi, thanks, Francis. This feels like Eurovision coming through, hopefully loud and clear from London. Thank you to you and to Hayley for such a comprehensive and positive overview of where we stand. I'm going to add a few short words. I've just got 3 slides here on the timetable on UK universities' kind of record in Horizon 2020 and the foundation that I think that provides us for the UK as a reliable partner in EU projects, and then to finish with a few words about what's new in the Horizon Europe programme. So starting with the timetable for confirming UK association, I just wanted to build on what Francis had to say about the next steps, to reiterate just how close we are, hopefully, to having UK association 100% confirmed in terms of the procedural and legal steps. So as you can see on the timetable there, we've been in a type of holding pattern for a few months after the Trade and Cooperation Agreement was agreed and by the EU and UK negotiators, and after the Horizon Europe texts, of which there are 2 kind of official legal texts that create the programme, were provisionally agreed between the EU institutions, which both happened in December. Since then, we've seen the official launch of the Horizon Europe programme in February under the Portuguese Council presidency, as well as the opening of the first European Research Council calls, which I think happened at the end of February. So even though the text is still waiting to be adopted, the Horizon text is still waiting to be adopted, there is activity that is getting underway. Happily, we're expecting that the formal adoption of the Horizon Europe text should happen at the European Parliament plenary session, which is the next one, which is next week, after the draft texts were both agreed by the Parliament's Industry Committee a few weeks ago. So we're really, hopefully on the cusp of having this all confirmed. We expect that the Council would sign off those Horizon texts shortly after this, and then as Francis explained, then that means that this specialised committee that will be made up of officials from the Commission and from the UK will be able to meet to rubber stamp and confirm UK association. So, as I say, hopefully we are very close indeed now in the next few weeks to having final legal confirmation that this is the new relationship. Can I have the next slide, please, Francis? Thanks. So association to Horizon Europe, once this is 100% legally confirmed, will enable UK researchers to keep up an extremely kind of successful track record in EU research and innovation projects. In this slide, I've included a few facts and figures just to illustrate how important the EU framework programs have been to UK institutions, which I think also underlines how enthusiastic UK university researchers are to engage in these projects. Taking UK university involvement as a proportion of total university involvement in Horizon 2020, as you can see, the UK has had a very large share of participations in Horizon projects, taken on more coordination roles than any other system, and received over 20% of the funding that's gone to European universities. This is, of course, to some extent a result of the way that the UK research base is configured, as there is a significantly higher proportion of research and innovation activity that takes place in universities in the UK compared with some other European systems. But this doesn't change the fact, in our view, that UK university researchers have enthusiastically embraced participation in EU projects over many years, and this new relationship with Horizon Europe lays the foundations for that strong relationship to continue. Unfortunately, it is important to note, though, that it is a fact that this positive trend has waned somewhat over recent years for several reasons, mostly stemming from the outcome of the referendum and the uncertainty that created over UK association. But that's why it's so important for us now to communicate this positive message, that we have this great resolution to that uncertainty, that we know that the UK will be associated and able to continue to participate in the vast majority of Horizon Europe calls. So can I have the last slide, please, Francis? So what have we got to look forward to in Horizon Europe? Just to end on a positive note, I'm going to give a quick overview of some of the important new developments in the Horizon Europe programme compared with its predecessor, just to whet the appetite. Firstly, there's significantly more funding available. The new programme has a budget of over 95 billion euros, which is already around 20 billion more than Horizon 2020. And that doesn't even include the significant financial contributions that the UK and other associated countries will make. And if you bear in mind, the UK was previously, as a part of a contributor to the overall EU budget, which it no longer is, that money will be additional to that existing 95 billion, which should take the budget to, I think, closer to 120 billion. Secondly, while we're keeping the same three-pillar structure, the old second pillar of Horizon 2020 is being redesigned and kind of reinvigorated as the European Innovation Council. This new structure aims to apply the ethos of the ERC, the European Research Council, and foster bottom-up innovation to create a new generation of European unicorns. The EU will, the UK will be eligible to participate in all of these calls, with the small exception of the equity funding and part of the EIC, as was explained earlier. And finally, to seek to illustrate the value of EU research and innovation investment, and to give the programme a clearer direction and set of objectives, the EU has developed a set of 5 new missions that the programme will seek to accomplish by 2030, through the broad range of activity that it will fund. So the Commission has set up designated mission boards for each of these missions, with high-profile chairs and experts, board members, to champion progress. I won't read through all of the 5 that you see on the slide now, but as you can see, they cover cancer, climate, oceans, carbon-neutral cities, and healthy soils. So that's everything that I have to say now. I can see we're just about hitting 20 minutes. So as hoped for, we do have around 40 minutes now left for question and answer. I'm going to invite Hayley, Francis, and Gosha to come back onto the screen, and we can start the Q&A part of the session. So I'm waiting for everyone to reappear. Fantastic. I'm just going to have a look at the questions that have been coming through. So please do continue to add your questions in the chat. But I think we've had a couple of questions through in advance, particularly relating to the ERC. So I might just throw these out there, and then if one of you wants to volunteer to respond, that would be great. So I've got one here about I'm a researcher in the EU with an ERC grant, but want to be based in the UK, and need to conduct field research outside of Europe. Is that possible? So if one of you would like to respond to that. Maybe Gosha, perhaps?
Yes, hello everyone. So yes, ACRO is running the national contact point for ERC, so I'm happy to answer. So just to reiterate that the UK institutions are fully eligible to be a host organization under ERC, and the ERC scheme is open to any nationality. So if the question is from a researcher from other European country, yes, you can come to the UK to do your research with the host institution in the UK. But if I understood correctly, the person is asking about the field work in the UK, so this would also be fine. ERC researchers, ERC funded PIs can do the research in any place in the world. So ERC scheme is very flexible, and of course in the UK we still remain one of the top destinations to be a host institution. So yeah, fully eligible and fully eligible for funding to come to the field work or to come and be based at the host institution.
Thanks, Gosha. Unless anyone else has anything to add there, there's another question here about the UK's financial contribution and the mechanisms for that, and whether that's been finalised, and will this have any effect on the projects and consortia. So perhaps if I could ask Hayley to respond to that.
Certainly, thank you. And I apologise if there is still a problem with my sound. I'm hoping it might be a bit better. So the agreement between the EU and the UK includes the details on the UK's financial contribution to the programme. So that is all agreed within the Trade and Cooperation Agreement, and there is nothing further to negotiate on that. The UK will make a contribution to the programme, and what that means is UK entities are able to apply within the programme as would entities from other member states in the same way.
Thank you, Hayley. I think there's another question here about the novelties in Horizon Europe compared with Horizon 2020. I think the question is, aside from adding the missions, are there any other significant changes between Horizon 2020 and Horizon Europe that we should be aware of? I mean, I think the slide that was up before set out the main kind of overarching changes. I think there have been one or two technical changes, more than one or two, to the kind of bureaucratic requirements of the project. I don't know whether Goshi, you're able to say anything more about other changes. Although, I mean, the question is about significant changes to the program.
Yeah, this is a huge question, but I think the EIC, so the European Innovation Council, being a settled institution now, it's a major change as well. This was only a pilot under Horizon 2020, and now it took a very prominent place in the new program. Other than that, we have overall continuation of the program, also in terms of implementation. Maybe worth mentioning that in the grant agreement has been slightly changed. The overall financial rules remain the same, but for those of you who are quite familiar with projects, there will be some changes. For instance, in terms of how you report staff costs or how you claim internal invoices, and financial rules have slightly changed. I don't know if we have time to go into details, but luckily, the Commission and also other institutions like ACRO, we are running a lot of webinars on what's new to Horizon Europe. So I think if you're interested, you could rewatch previous webinars or join upcoming webinars run by the Commission. We always highlight changes, but if we talk about strategic changes, I think missions and EIC in a nutshell are the main new features.
Thanks, Gosha. We've got another question here, which I think maybe either Haley or Francis might be able to answer, about whether normal visa rules will apply for the ERC and other researchers visiting the UK, presumably the question being, as part of a Horizon funded project.
Shall I? Oh, sorry, Francis, go ahead.
Sorry. So I think it depends on in what context. So there is this new global talent visa scheme, which is for when a person wants to sort of move for the length of their grant to the UK. And there is a provision in that for people who are in receipt of Horizon Europe funding, including ERC grants. But if it is for sort of shorter periods, there are other visa routes for that. So Haley, if you wouldn't mind talking a bit more about those.
Certainly. We know that for many people working on Horizon Europe, it will be coming to the UK or indeed UK researchers and businesses going to the EU for much shorter periods. For those coming into the UK for shorter periods, there is a visitor visa which allows visa-free travel for up to 6 months for a list of certain reasons to be able to come to the UK. So there are various visa routes available which would enable collaboration under Horizon Europe.
Thank you both. There's another question here, which I'm going to have a go at trying to answer, which is, does a UK participant have to fulfil any specific formal procedures to participate in Horizon Europe projects beside what is stated in the grant agreement? And I think the answer to that is no. The whole idea behind association, the idea of an associated state, is that they researchers from those states have exactly the same rights and responsibilities as far as Horizon Europe projects concerned and eligibility. So if you're a UK-based researcher applying either for a collaborative or a mono beneficiary project, you will have just the same bureaucratic and financial responsibilities and level of eligibility as any other researcher, with the small exception of the duly justified exclusions and the EIC fund that was explained earlier. There's another there are a lot more questions here which I'm going to pass on. So one is about the decision around the possibility that the UK will be left out of the quantum and space calls. Is there anything that I think perhaps Hayley, you can say about those areas?
Thank you. As mentioned earlier, the UK's association is to the whole programme, except for the EIC fund. However, the EU can exclude associated countries for justified reasons from certain elements of the programme and from certain areas. And there are, many people would be aware, through the press and through elsewhere, discussions currently ongoing in the Commission around quantum and space areas in particular, and the role of associated countries in those. Those discussions are still ongoing, and the outcome of those we don't have yet. But those are the reasons why the Commission could exclude countries. However, again, we'd expect those to be in very limited and exceptional reasons, and for duly justified and explained reasons, because very much part of our association to Horizon Europe is about the opportunities for collaboration.
Thanks, Hayley. Just to clarify there, as I understand it, that also, if there are any of these duly justified exclusions, they have to be communicated in the work programme. Is that correct? That's
correct, yes. They would be communicated as part of those work programmes for those individual areas.
Great. So that should be clear at an early stage if that is the case. There's a question, I suppose more relevant for currently UK-based researchers, about whether there'll be any additional reporting obligations on UK beneficiaries to the UK government, such as data collection and other types of monitoring of UK participation, in light of the new relationship with the programme?
No, there won't be any of those additional, no further reporting requirements.
Great, I'm sure that will be a popular answer with a lot of attendees. There's also a few questions about, or at least a couple of questions about the duration of the agreement. So there's one here: is the current status of the UK's full association to Horizon Europe locked in for the whole duration, or will it be reconsidered or re-examined? For example, in relation to the UK's performance in the Horizon Europe programme at some point during the programme. I think maybe again, Hayley, if you would be able to answer that.
Sure. So on that, the UK's association to the programme is for the 7 years of the programme. Within that, there are reasons in the trade agreement where, on both the EU and the UK side, where reasons for participation to be terminated, but that is usual in association agreements, and that's been the case for Switzerland and Israel. We are not envisaging any of those to be used. Very much the UK has signed up for the 7 years of the Horizon Europe programme.
Great, that's more positive news. There's another question here about the scoring of Horizon bids. I'm going to ask you, Gosha, if you're able to answer this. I'm not sure. It might be something that we have to come back to, but the question is, I read that Horizon documents and the Horizon documents implied that collaborative bids with industry will be scored higher than sole academic bids. Is that the case? And is there any benefit of EU as opposed to UK industrial bids, if so?
So yes, of course, the innovation element is very important in Horizon Europe. However, there's still a lot of scope for basic and academic research. So I think it would depend on the work program and a specific topic. So there's no one answer covering all topics, but yes, in many cases, especially for innovation, if we have a call for innovation actions, the call text and expected impact would require very heavy and strong private sector involvement, but it would really depend on the topic. So for universities, if you are academics from universities, be reassured that there are also topics relevant to academics. So it's a mix, I think, but there is there's this question whether it would be the question is whether it would be benefit for EU and UK industry leads. So yes, so industries and private sector are very welcome in the program and will benefit from many topics. But I think the best if the person asking has got any specific topic in mind, happy to look into this and to see whether there is a strong scope for private sector in this particular call or not. But generally, there would be topics for both sectors, so academic and non-academic.
Thanks, Gosha. And just to remind everyone, if there's any questions that we don't get around to, we are going to have a go at answering whichever questions we can after the event, and we'll share those with everyone those answers with everyone who's registered later. And if there's a more specific question, then feel free to contact us. You've got the email address on the slide there if you have detailed questions, and we can always try to find the answer to those. There was one question also that was sent in advance, and I think this is I would invite any of the three of you to respond to this, perhaps starting with Francis, about how well, firstly, do I need to find an EU member state partner to bid into Horizon? And then I suppose you could usefully add to that, are there any particularly any advice that you might have for how either UK researchers can find and develop new relationships with EU researchers or vice versa?
Sorry, having a problem with my mic mute button there. So as I said in the presentation, the UK participants are to be treated the same as EU member states. So it depends on the rules of the programme, but essentially if it says that one member state is required, then the UK can sort of bid in. So for example, on ERC grants, where it is a sole applicant, that can be a UK researcher. So there's no need to sort of necessarily find a partner just for the sake of it to bid in, but obviously many of the programs are encouraging wide collaboration. So I would encourage people to look far and wide for partners. And then in terms of sort of where you can find partners, I know that there is support from UPeter at UUKi, also at UPRO, and there's the national contact points in the UK who can help in specific sectors. But I don't know, Gosha or Hayley, if you want to add anything.
Yes, I'm happy to maybe add that, yes, indeed, for mono-beneficiary projects, it's fine to be based in the UK, so ERC and Marie Curie fellowships. However, for collaborative projects, so for standard research and innovation actions, the novelty is that you need 3 countries, and it must be member state or associated country, and at least one indeed need to be a member state. So this is a new standard Horizon Europe participation rule. And in terms of looking for partners, so on the call, there are a lot of online activities at the moment. Some national contact points will be holding a lot of partner search and brokerage events. And also on the website, very often, National Contact Point website, they have partner search tools. And on the top of this, on the call page for each topic, there is a function which already existed before on the Horizon 2020, where you can advertise your interest or look for others who are interested in a very specific topic on the very call page. So this is a function that can be used as well. But in practice, from what successful beneficiaries say, most of connections are done, via business as usual. So via your activities in conferences or other activities beyond beyond Horizon projects, which then are very useful when you want to apply with consortium together. So I think being active as a researcher, being active as an innovator internationally, having a good website, being active in an events can help as well. Because even if they don't focus on Horizon calls and projects, they can be good places for finding partners. And I would encourage everyone to follow NCPs and their websites and Twitters and other social media accounts, because very often they also help in partner search, and you can contact them as well if you have a project idea, and they sometimes can help you in finding new partners and putting your advert out there. Thank you.
Thanks, Gosha. I would just point out, we've got about another 15 or 20 minutes here for Q&A. So if there are any more questions that you have now, please do put them in the ask a question box. In the meantime, there's a couple more here which I'm going to try and get through. One which I'm going to have a go at answering again myself. So the question is, on balance, should UKPIs act as a lead or coordinator as opposed to a partner on consortia projects in Horizon Europe? And I think to that, I'd say you should follow exactly the same kind of thought process as I think you would have in Horizon 2020 if you were considering having a UKPI lead and coordinator a Horizon 2020 project. And I think the idea is in Horizon Europe, there's no reason why you shouldn't consider a UK lead in the same way. There's no change to, as I say, to the eligibility or the way that UK applicants would be treated in grant processes. So I'd say very much yes. Please do still consider having a UK lead, but at the very least, don't consider it any differently as you would have in Horizon 2020. Unless anyone else wants to add anything to that question, I've got a question here about the ERC synergy grants, which I'm going to ask Gosha to answer. And the question is whether in an ERC synergy grant application, can there be two participants from the UK?
Okay, thank you, Peter. So the first year, 2021, there is no synergy grant call. That's why we cannot answer this question 100%. We will have the work program for 2022 when the first synergy grant is expected towards the end of this year. However, looking back into work program for 2020, where the UK was already at the end of Brexit process, we were eligible to have a synergy grant fully based in the UK. So at the moment, I can say that 90%, 98%, we don't expect any change here, but the final confirmation will be when we see the work program for 2022. But based on 2020 call, I would say it should be fine.
Thank you, Gosha, once again. There's a question here which I will ask Hayley to respond to, which is what if the association agreement and the protocol is not yet signed at the moment when the grant agreements have to be signed? what will be done, and what if the consortium, for example, only counts with 3 partners comprising one of the UK, and then the UK were not to be eligible then?
Thank you. And in terms of this question, for those of you that will have seen the European Commission's Q&A, which I'd really recommend having a look at, it's a really useful document to see. That is very clear that UK entities are eligible to apply for funding now, to form part of consortia now, with part of that being that the UK has to have associated to Horizon Europe before those grant agreements have been signed, as this question highlights. We are not envisaging this being a difficulty because, as Peter said in his helpful run through of the timing earlier, the Horizon Europe regulations are due to be finalised very shortly, and then after that what needs to happen is for the EU and the UK to adopt a protocol, the draft protocol, which has already been published and agreed. There are no further negotiations needed on that beyond updating some references and referring back to all of the right reference numbers of the Horizon Europe regulations. Therefore, that should be a process that can happen fairly quickly regarding that. Whereas, for example, the grant agreements will be several months down the line. For example, the ERC grant has only just opened, and we would expect all of the UK's associations will be completed well in advance of that.
Thank you, Hayley.
Could I just mention something else? Yeah, so I just wanted to highlight that there is we have currently open a special rapid call already under Horizon Europe under Cluster 1 and Research Infrastructures for coronavirus related projects, so projects related to the new variants. And this is a rapid call with a very short deadline, 1 month, and then a shorter than usual grant agreement process. However, in this call, it's explicitly explained that third countries which are expected to be associated later this year or next year, so including the UK, are eligible, even though the grant agreement will be probably signed before the association. So this was an exceptional case made for this call linked to coronavirus. So, there's always a way. So just to add that if you are from medical supply science and consider applying in this particular call, the UK is eligible, despite grant agreement being signed probably before the full association.
Thank you, Gosha and Hayley. I think we're coming to the end of the questions that we've received today. As I say, we're going to try and get back to as many as we can in writing after the meeting. There's one that I would ask that we received again earlier on, which is about the cost association, whether that and how that is affected by this. So I don't know which one of you would like to answer what the status is as far as cost is concerned.
So in terms of cost, the UK will continue to be a part of cost. UK researchers will continue to be eligible for cost actions in just the same way that they have been due to the UK's association with Horizon Europe. Was that the question, Peter? Is there anything else?
Yes, that was the question. Thank you very much. I think, as I say, we've come to the end of the questions that we can answer on. There's one on the. So there's one just come through here. I've seen. So there's some researchers are still nervous about including UK partners in case of evaluated bias. We want to work with the UK. So is there anything being done to help address this, and what can we tell them? Does anyone have any advice for that question?
So in terms of the evaluation of bids, as you know, the evaluation of bids is done on merit for areas like the ERC, where that is done by an independent panel of experts looking at those applications of scientific merit. UK researchers will still be able to be evaluators and form part of those panels, as they have been in the past. And so UK applicants should be treated in exactly the same way as applicants from any other member state, as long as they meet the eligibility criteria, and then under the agreement they are treated in exactly the same way as anybody else applying for funding.
Thanks, Hayley. I'd add. Oh, sorry, Gosha, please.
Yeah, I think just to add from Russell's perspective that luckily the Commission has been very helpful as well in terms of reiterating the UK eligibility in last Horizon 2020 calls, for instance, and of course already now in any events advertising Horizon Europe opportunities like EIC, the ERC that we already had. They always reiterate, that the evaluators are being briefed to evaluate only on the merit of the proposals and not any other circumstances. And just maybe to add that being an associated country is new to the UK, but it's not new phenomenon. So there have always been associated country, and they've always been treated fairly in the evaluation process. So I understand it's human nature and people are nervous and anxious, but even looking at calls of 2020 and the Horizon 2020, there have been lots of projects coordinated by the UK in these uncertain times, and they were successful. So there is my personal trust in the evaluation, transparency and processes. But of course, I think we still need some time and events like this, fact sheets and whatever we can do to encourage people to be confident in this process. Thank you.
Thanks, Gosha. Just to add from a UK international perspective there, hopefully things like the information pack and these webinars, the information pack that we're working on and these webinars, hopefully provide some useful clarity that you can share with anyone with those types of questions. To back up what Gosha was saying, I believe that I can't remember the exact number, but a significant number of the top 10 or so recipients of ERC funding all come from associated countries. So I think there as well, in particular, you see that historically, there's been no question of bias against associated countries. And I think going back to the figures which I included on my slides, I think in general the point to take away from that is that not so much there's been little evidence or no evidence of a clear change in success rates and how applications have been evaluated. Rather, I think what we've seen is a bit of a drop in the number of UK participations in the last couple of years. So if you're looking at the data and have those questions, then I think that the answer lies more in the participation levels or the application levels rather than in any type of evaluation bias. So I think unless anyone else has anything to add, Francis, Gosha, or Hayley, that you think we've missed, I think we've come to the end of the questions that we've had. As I say, once again, we are going to try and get back to as many as we can in writing after the event, and we'll share those with everyone who's registered. We're also going to share these slides with everyone who's registered after the event, as well as a link. So I think all that really remains for me to say is to thank you, the audience, for tuning in and for your active involvement in this webinar. And of course to our speakers, Francis, Hayley and Gosha, for their extremely enlightening participation in the webinar today. So that's all from me. I wish you a good afternoon and thank you very much for attending.